My name is Dusty Cole, and welcome to the Business Builders Podcast, where we interview salespeople, entrepreneurs, and business owners and learn how they overcame challenges to build a successful business. My name is Dusty Cole, and I'd like to welcome Jim Owen, the owner of Gulf Shores Title. Jim, thanks for joining me, and giving your time today. The purpose of this podcast is to learn from other entrepreneurs and how they built their business, and you have built a very successful title business, and you're a successful real estate investor, which I admire. And I really admire people that sustain business for a long period of time. I think it's a lot easier to gain some success, but to sustain it, I think is a whole nother thing. So maybe just start by telling us kind of, how you got into the title business.
Well, my exposure originally was through my father. I didn't really know that I was being exposed to it at the time, but I was in the record room of the courthouse here in Baldwin County, and he was looking at the books, as we call them, which is it's not the way you do it these days, but back then you had to flip pages through books, and he said, the name I'm looking for is this. I want you to look at all these pages.
Okay.
And so I was running title when I didn't really know I was running title. In addition to that, in the early 70s, between high school and college, I was working in the probate court office, which back then, when you bought car tags and you paid taxes, that always happened between October the 1st and December 31st. So I was working in the tag department, traveling around, so I was exposed to probate records back then in 1970.
Okay. So your dad was in the title business?
My father was an attorney,
Okay.
and he did some title work, and back then he was doing really title opinions were much more.
But you acquired Gulf Shores Title, is that right? If I remember you telling me?
No,
Or did you start it?
actually, Herb Malone
Okay.
and I
Okay.
formed that in February of 1985 after having worked for another company. We bought their branch out.
Okay. And then rebranded Gulf Shores Title?
We rebranded it to Gulf Shores Title.
Okay.
Now, since I brought in Herb Malone,
Okay.
he's the one that really got me in the business, because he and I worked together in the finance business over in Mobile, where we did second mortgages, and frankly, we did our own appraisals.
So you brokered them, or what were you? Are you holding the paper?
We worked for a company that was, I believe at the time it's called Cumberland Capital Corporation, then became something else.
I see.
So we ordered title insurance. So
okay. So you learned about it.
We learned about title insurance as a result of being in the finance business. And the short story is, the person or the company in Mobile that we were ordering title insurance from decided they wanted to open up an office in Baldwin County. Herb Malone went to work for them, and shortly thereafter he hired me. So it was a company of three, me and Herb and a person that answered the phone.
So that was my next question. So what was it like in 1985 when you just opened up your doors? Were you profitable right away, or, what was the trajectory?
Well, we got a paycheck every month.
That's good. So you never went without. That's good.
We didn't struggle to bring money in, but it was hard to keep it. We needed to grow because we weren't very well capitalized at the time, because I was good at spending money when I made it, like a lot of people.
Right.
And he and I actually got into investing in real estate even way back then.
Okay. Since you went there, so what were you investing in 1985, or say the 80s? What was an ideal investment for you then?
Well, we were pretty wide open. We actually had some rental property.
Okay, like long-term
single-family
homes?
Long-term rentals. we owned what we referred to back then as Pleasure Island Cottages, which is over near the canal in Gulf Shores.
Okay.
They were primarily, most of them were what you would call an efficiency apartment, separate building.
Right.
You walk in, there were 2 rooms,
Okay.
a bathroom, and everything else. And those cottages were actually built in the 50s. They're still alive and kicking today, owned by someone else.
So that was one of your first investments that you
That was
remember?
that was one of the first. We owned some vacant lots that one actually down in Gulf Place in Gulf Shores.
Okay.
That one of our customers brought to us, a real estate agent, thought it'd be a good investment, and we were fortunate enough to be able to gather up some funds and buy that and hold it for a little bit, make some money. Had a lot on Ono Island, believe it or not. We paid $35,000 for a lot.
Waterfront?
On Old River. And at the time, our wives thought we were nuts.
Yeah. They're worth $1.5 million now. You know?
So the scope of what we looked for and invested in, sometimes we were looking to make if you could make $10,000 on a deal, it's like, that's a home run.
So would you consider yourself more of like a trader, move fast for less profit, or more like a hold, or has it changed over the years?
Well, I like to have a diversified portfolio.
So some cash flow and some short term.
Some short term.
Okay.
I've been fortunate to have some deals that we look at, and I've had really good partners over the years, and that, just like in the title insurance business, you got to have really good partners, i.e. employees, because they're our partners with you. I've been very fortunate in that area, and to me, that's been the single most important part of our success. I've got employees. I've got one employee who just went part-time, who was actually working with me before we were Gulf Shores Title. So she was working with the old company that I originally went to work for.
Wow.
I've got several people that have been with me over 20 years.
Right.
So
that says a lot about you and your organization. Absolutely. I know my parents at Gulf Bowl have had some similar experiences, 20, 30, 40 years employees. That's harder to find now, I think, someone that starts now and go 40 years. But, it certainly says a lot about you. So 1985, you're investing in real estate. The title business is growing. What was it like so agents were is that where you went just like today to kind of partner with agents to generate business for your title? Or was it different back then?
No, it was the same then. The difference being that I knew all the agents and their spouses, and a lot of times their children, and where they lived.
Right.
So it was, it was different then, but at the same time, and we, be honest with you, the level of professionalism and knowledge that we have today is so much greater than what we had back then, and I think a lot of it's about the education that the agents get now, and the competitive.
That's where I was about to go.
It's so much more competitive now.
Right. Sharpen that saw, if you want to win, right?
Exactly.
Well, how has that affected, like in your? There's more title companies now too. So from a business owner standpoint, competing with other title companies, what has that been like? Where have you had to improve over the years?
Well, I always thought of myself as being a hard worker, because I also thought of myself as maybe not being as organized as other people. That's just my personality. If you saw my desk, you would think.
Same. I've got the messiest desk in the office.
So I kept myself educated. I worked hard. I prided myself on working hard I've just always figured that, if you're the best at what you do, then you'll be successful. And be the best, you not only have to stay up to date educational wise, but you have to take some risk.
Right.
And some of those risks have to do with spending money on equipment. We were the second company in Gulf Shores to have a fax machine. Now, I know y'all don't use fax machines anymore, but back then it was a big deal.
I bet.
We had a bank that had a fax machine, and we had Gulf Shores Title had a fax machine.
Cutting edge.
And so we were cutting edge there.
Yeah,
and we actually had real estate agents come to our office and stand in line to send a fax. And,
That's awesome.
so we got them in our office.
Yeah.
So getting them in the office is...
we laugh about it now, but, that's a big deal, right? You got them walking through your door.
Right.
That's
and then the computers, that's something else that's gone. Our first computer was one piece of equipment with a keyboard, monitor, and computer, all one piece of equipment.
Yeah.
So
if we could spin this camera around to see what we got right here, it's pretty
then,
amazing.
So then we went from that to 3 IBM computers, and they were all networked. This network was like, what does that mean?
They talk to each other.
So they talked to each other, and we said, we'll never have to buy another computer. So that's how dumb we were on the computer side. But
it was just so new.
Yeah.
So you have witnessed in business, 1985, all the high rises started. I know we had Frederick in 79, and then the major development started happening. But, the high rises really started after 1985, primarily. So what has that been like to witness that, and how has that changed your business? How did you have to change, what you guys do?
Well, at one time there were so many, and I would say, the big boom was the early 2000s to 2006, before what we'll refer to as the crash.
Yep.
And number one, we had to have more people. And getting people, we were fortunate enough to be able to get some people that knew title insurance. There have been, over the years, quite a few what I would call good employees, because that's the first thing I wanted, was somebody that would make a good employee, whether they knew anything about our business or not. And we've been able to hire people that ended up being good employees that didn't know anything about our business.
Right.
So if you mold them your way, that's kind of been the way we've been able to do it, except during the real boom, we had to hire some people that had some experience, and we actually had an office that did nothing but close transactions in new condominium buildings.
Wow.
And
yeah,
that was
so
that was a risk for me, because I was, my payroll, I'm not sure how much it was, but I'm pretty sure it was probably about $75,000 a month.
So you had to ramp up your staff to handle the boom, and then, everything changed, suddenly and kind of slowly. So what was that like here's one thing I didn't realize, not being in the business then, is that, so not only did transactions go way down, values went way down, but closings were, I did know it, but it didn't register. Closings were happening like, these foreclosures were being closed like with Sorority's attorneys out of our marketplace. So not only did the market downturn, files were being closed all over outside of our own market. Did you experience that?
Yes.
So say all that to say, what did you do then? Like, did you have to just cut way back?
Well, we chose not to cut back.
Okay.
We chose to absorb losses in order to keep people on and keep people working.
Okay.
So, and we, during that time period, we still had a couple of condo projects that were being built that were going to be closing. And so,
So some for sure money there.
We needed to keep people there, but I had this wonderful 3-year plan, and then we had an oil spill, and that was horrible. That's the first time I ever had to lay anybody off,
right,
in order to keep it going. I had to.
So that was a more scary time than the market changing like it did in your mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So take us back to that. Go ahead.
Well, one of the things that you have to rely on, as I said, good people. Okay, I got some advice from our accountant, which ended up being golden for the people that we had to lay off. And he said, "This is what you need to do. This is how you do it. You write them a letter. You put it in the letter." And basically what happened was even the people that got laid off ended up being compensated handsomely by BP because of the documentation that they had,
right,
that they got laid off as a result of the oil spill.
Right, so because you handled it properly, they were made whole.
And so I ended up feeling okay about laying them off because...
Yeah, I forgot about all that.
They ended up... if they handle their money properly, they turned out pretty well.
Interesting. So is there a time when you can kind of look back at Gulf Shore's title when there was like a milestone achievement, or maybe like you feel like there was a corner that was turned when you're like, you know what, this is gonna be a successful business? Or was it just like this slow build and you really can't pinpoint that?
I'd say I probably can't really pinpoint it. It was work.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wasn't a real goal setter. It wasn't like, okay, this is what we wanted. I always just said we got to do the best we can do with what we have.
Right.
And if we see an opportunity to grow, a lot of times I would hire somebody just because I thought they'd be good, not necessarily that we needed somebody at the time. So,
so leading with people.
Leading with people, exactly.
Yeah, that's good advice.
And when I found somebody that was good, I was delighted to hire them because I dislike trying to go through the hiring process. I think
because when you have turnover, that's expensive and stressful, right? And more expensive than people think. You know, 'cause your time is money, right? And you're having to retrain, over and over. Is there a challenge that continually comes up, like in 1985 and in 2022, that you're still having to endure or fight through or learn how to correct?
Wow.
Tough one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, to me, getting people to buy in, but at the same time, I encourage people, especially people that have been in the business or in any, I encourage them to come to me and go, well, why don't we do this? Or why do we do it this way?
Right.
And my response typically, I'll tell people when I'm encouraging that is that it's like, you may come to me and I may say, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard of. But then I might say, well, we tried that about 3 years ago. It didn't quite work out, but I think maybe we try it again.
Right.
Or we do something a little different. So
just having an open policy of discussion.
Oh, if we did things, and things have changed in the past 5 years. Even.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot. And so if we did things the way that we did them 5 years ago, and then 5 years,
like fraud now.
We have got to constantly be on the lookout of ways that we can positively affect what we do.
Right. It's very competitive, for sure. And you've got some great people that are working for you now. So when we've talked about the market change, the crash as we call it, but the ebb and flow of how the market changes now, like we've recently just had a pretty major change, I think. How does that affect your business?
Well, obviously we depend on real estate transactions, whether it's sales, refinance, or even foreclosures. That's the last thing we want to do
Sure.
is work on foreclosures and resales and
Right.
short sales. Those are not the lifeblood.
No fun.
The lifeblood is sales and refinances. And, you know, at some point, you just have to do what's available until you can figure out something better.
Right. How do you get new business now? Or do you is it up to your title agents to search it, or like how do you try to grow in today's environment?
Well, you just create new contacts, new relationships, and of course nurture the ones that you do have. That's that's kind of marketing 101.
Just relationship based.
Yeah.
What's a common mistake that you see young entrepreneurs and business owners make, or new?
I don't know that I see it, but I sense that there might not be enough risk takers out there.
Okay.
You gotta kind of understand that you might trip and fall, but as long as you keep at it, keep running, and keep trying, you'll get on the right track. But it's an old saying, but I see a lot of people get paralysis by analysis. I do. A good friend of mine in the restaurant business, he and his partner, Eddie Spence and David Cahoon, they made a good living in the restaurant business. And the way that they grew their restaurant sites were they would go to a town, they would ride around the town, and they would say, that looks like a good site. They did none of this hiring people, consultants and all that. No.
Trusted their gut.
So you trusted the gut, and that's the way they operated, and they were very successful at it.
Very is an understatement. I'd say so. That's interesting. What about the basics of title insurance? That's kind of off topic a little bit, but I think some people don't really understand that. The layman person probably doesn't understand why you need title insurance, or like, where you go to get it. You want to care to expound on that? Just some education, maybe?
The purpose of title insurance is to protect a lender or a buyer, in the case of a sale, against anything that may affect the property adversely, and just to inform them things that they need to know, whether it's adverse or not. Something as simple as, well, what can I build here according to some restrictions that may be in the subdivision? Where are the lines? What are the setback lines? Do I have to be 30 feet from the back, or can I be 10 feet from the back and the side? I have personally benefited from having a title insurance policy in which somebody claimed something that wasn't right. They actually sued us. We went to court, and I remember thinking, I'm sitting here, and I got 3 attorneys on my side, and they got a couple on their side. They're paying theirs. I'm not paying mine.
Thank goodness,
because I've got title insurance.
Right.
And one of the biggest things to me, if nothing else, is if you have the right coverage under your policy and you get sued, then and wrongfully so,
right?
It's like, what are you going to do? Say, no, you're wrong? No, you got to go hire an attorney.
Right.
So in my particular case, the title insurance underwriter was paying for those 3 attorneys to sit there. So
yeah, didn't think of that. That's a good point.
That's happened. There was a very expensive piece of property down near Ono Island near Caribe that a gentleman passed away, and his estate claimed that they owned some property where at the time there were about 7 or 8 relatively new houses, which, because the location was very expensive, all those people were covered in their title insurance.
Wow. And what was the end result?
The end result was the estate lost, but again,
But still, they had to fight it.
still had to fight it.
Right.
Defense.
You don't think about the fight.
The defense.
Just because you're in the right. So what advice would you give somebody today if they were starting a new business, new entrepreneur?
Seek out people that are in a similar business that you can count on to guide when, and I didn't bring this up, but when in 1985, I also had a couple of friends that had worked with me at the same company, and they decided to go out on their own over in Mobile, and we relied upon each other a lot.
Right.
Because we were all young, all anxious to be profitable, and we called. Matter of fact, I called one of them 2 weeks ago.
They're still in business over there?
Still in business over there.
So, are you invested in any other businesses that you, I mean, have you ever diversified in that way, or has it mainly just been title, real estate investing?
Well, okay. No other businesses. My son went to school in New York City because the stock market, and he worked in the stock market for a while, and I kept trying to talk to him about, and this is some of the best advice I've ever gotten.
Okay.
I kept trying to talk to him about buying some stocks and doing that. He said, "Dad, stick with what you know." So I've stuck with what I know, which is title insurance and real estate.
Yes.
Let somebody else do the stuff that they're good at.
That's some good advice, I think. I mean, I know some people, they might invest in like ancillary businesses that kind of support what they do. So back to real estate investing. So how do you analyze deals today? Is it kind of like your restaurant friends? Is it just in your gut?
Kind of, yes. Yes, it is. Of course, you have to crunch some numbers, but you just kind of get a feel. It's unbelievable how in our area, how a particular little community, and I'm going to use Bear Point as an example. Okay. Bear Point that subdivision is 50-foot lots created in the 1930s.
Yes.
Okay. For some reason or another, in this uptick and in the last uptick we had, that market kind of got pretty hot.
Charged up.
Yeah. And as an example, we have a very nice subdivision on the north side of Gulf Shores, Martin Woods.
Yes.
Very nice homes.
Yeah.
Recently, I found out that you can buy a lot in Martin Woods for less than you can buy a lot in Bear Point, which makes absolutely zero sense, none.
Those Martin Woods lots are huge.
Martin Woods lots are a lot bigger.
Yeah.
But it's really all about tapping into the lifestyle down at Bear Point.
That's right. The golf cart.
Ride the golf cart, drink some adult beverages and go visit your friends and go down to the marina.
And do it safely.
And do that, and then you can't do that in Martin Woods.
That's right.
It still didn't make any sense to me. But
so how do you use that?
So you kind of figure out, somehow you figure out, well, this is what looks like is happening in this instance, Bear Point.
Right.
Bear Point's a hot market, or it's going to be a hotter market. It's catching on again.
And do you think by owning your title company and having relationship, I mean, does that information kind of flow through your office, or is it like relationships you already have?
A little bit of both if you pay attention. It's really hard for me to keep up with every transaction that comes through our office.
Sure.
Because I can sit down this morning and close a deal, and then it's public knowledge, and then somebody says, well, you closed this the other day.
Right.
What was the sales price? And I go,
yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
You're doing a lot of transactions.
I don't.
Right.
I'd like to be able to retain some of that, but it's there. I always know that it's there. I can figure it out.
Right. So which one do you enjoy more? I think I've asked you this before. Real estate investing or managing your title business?
I don't know. I enjoy getting up and coming to work. I enjoy being around the people in the office, and we share our private lives, just like family does. Right now, I have one employee in the hospital and one with COVID. We're communicating, everybody trying to keep up with how's she doing, and
right.
So
looking back, is there anything you do different when you grow in your business?
I don't know. I don't know. Thank goodness I don't have to make that decision.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I know. But
I would say this, that I've had obviously a number of employees over the years, and there are, I've had people, they'll come to me and they'll say, well, I'm getting ready, I'm going to turn in my resignation, and I'll go, okay, well, good. Well, you have an opportunity. I try to be really analytical about what are you going to do?
Right.
And I've had people come to me and go, and I say, it's a great opportunity for you.
So you don't go sour on them because they're leaving
No,
you? Yeah.
No, I don't.
I've had that happen to me before. I've had two very different experiences. Not in my family business, but when I went to someone and said, I got this idea and it's different than what I'm doing, and I got a very negative approach, back, like, go ahead and get your stuff. And then I've gone to another instance where it was like, let's get in my truck, let's take a drive and talk about it, and really engage with me about what I was trying to do and how impactful that was. Like, wow, he cares, So sounds like that's what similar you do.
I did have one. I did have one that was going to another title company, a new title company.
Yeah.
And I don't remember this, but she told me 3 years later that I said, well, what are you going to do in 3 years when they close down?
Well.
And that was my honest opinion.
Right. Yeah. So.
Anyway, because she came to me 3 years later and they had closed down, and she said, well, you were the first person I thought about.
Well, if you speak true, so I would imagine your people get recruited a little bit because it's a very specialized skill there.
Yeah.
Or knowledge,
It is, and I know in the bigger cities that I think there's more of the poaching. I think for the most part we have a pretty good
people don't come in
a group of people that kind of honor the unwritten code. Not everybody has that, but
so there is an unwritten right then within the title business. You think?
Well, it is for me.
Yeah, I'll stay away from your people if you stay away from mine.
Yeah.
Real estate agents, not really the case. They really they'll go after your people pretty aggressively.
And by the way, I've had people ask me if I ever thought about getting my real estate license. Yeah, I thought about it for about this long, half a second.
Yeah, why not?
I absolutely do not want the job of a real estate agent or broker. There's no way.
Yeah, why not?
Well, number one, I don't like answering my phone after about 7 o'clock at night.
You can shut things off better in your business.
Although in my early years I did do a lot of working on Saturdays and Sundays, but it was kind of for the most part it was when I felt like I needed to, not because I had to.
It was kind of, I imagine it's kind of preparing for the week mostly. I find you as a very good problem solver. Do you value that in your skill set?
I'm the chief firefighter. That's what I call myself.
Yeah, I've experienced that.
And I do like solving problems. I find.
I think maybe you've even been invited to Thanksgiving dinner at one time at one of my clients. We were fighting through a deal. Remember that?
I do remember.
You were over there so many times.
Yeah.
But I think unless you have anything else you want, I want to thank you so much taking an hour out of your day to come. I think it's valuable information. Maybe someone will learn something. And of course consider Gulf Shores Title. We do business with Gulf Shores Title a ton and always have a great experience. We use Rochelle primarily, and she's a rock star title agent. So we'll definitely put your information out there.
Well, I've told you this before. You have the best assistant.
Janice.
Janice.
Yep.
She's
amazing.
She's a rock star.
She is.
Yeah.
And she's very, very organized and takes her job serious and gets a lot done in a day, let me tell you.
Yeah.
She makes me look good most days. So.
We really enjoy working. We enjoy having good people, and we enjoy working with good people, and we enjoy people that, it's much easier for us to try to make you happy than it is to try to make somebody that's just not a happy person.
Right. Well, I imagine the better job we do, the easier it is on you. I can imagine.
And the better it is for your buyer and your seller.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you again for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
Yep. So, thank you for tuning in to the Business Builders Podcast. We plan on releasing 2 new podcasts every month featuring local entrepreneurs, salespeople, and business owners. If you find our content valuable, please like, share, comment, tell us what you think, share your stories, and also subscribe.